For a lot of people, the frustration isn't that they stopped working hard. It's that they never stopped, and still somehow fell behind anyway. Because something feels different now. People work longer hours, take extra shifts, push harder financially than previous generations ever had to. Yet despite all of it, life still feels harder to keep up with. And the strange part is, most people can feel the pressure without fully understanding where it's coming from. Because on the surface, the system still appears functional. People still work. Businesses still grow. Money still moves through the economy every day. But underneath, the relationship between effort and progress has quietly changed. For decades, hard work was tied to stability. A stable income could support a home, support a family, build savings over time. Not perfectly, but consistently enough that people believed progress was possible. And that belief mattered. Because economies rely heavily on the idea that effort leads somewhere. But once that connection starts weakening, everything else begins changing with it. At first, the shift is easy to ignore. Prices rise gradually. Bills become slightly harder to manage. Saving money takes a little longer than it used to. Then over time, the pressure spreads into bigger parts of life. Homes become harder to afford. Debt becomes more common. Entire incomes disappear into costs that once took up far less. And eventually, people begin noticing something uncomfortable. The harder they work, the less progress they seem to make. This is where the frustration starts building across the entire economy. Because people can tolerate pressure for a long time, as long as they believe it leads somewhere better. But once effort stops creating the same results it used to, that belief starts to weaken. And when enough people begin feeling that at the same time, the effects spread far beyond individual finances. Because this isn't just about money, it's about momentum. The feeling that life is moving forward instead of standing still. And right now, more people are beginning to feel like they're running faster, just to remain in the same place. Which raises a much bigger question. If people are working harder than ever, then why does it feel like stability keeps moving further away instead of closer? Because once that question starts spreading through an economy, the pressure underneath the system begins to change completely. At first, most people assume the problem is temporary. Maybe prices are just unusually high for a while. Maybe things will settle down once the economy improves. But then the years keep passing, and the pressure doesn't disappear. Because the deeper problem isn't just inflation. It's that the cost of building a stable life has started rising faster than incomes can realistically keep up with. And once that gap begins widening for long enough, working harder stops creating the same progress it once did. This is where the system quietly starts changing. Because for a long time, labor was enough to build security. A stable job could eventually lead to ownership. Ownership could eventually lead to stability. That cycle is what built much of the modern middle class. But today, ownership itself has become harder to reach. Homes rise faster than wages. Assets rise faster than savings. And the cost of entering the system keeps accelerating ahead of the people trying to catch it. This is why so many people feel trapped in constant catch-up mode. Because even when income increases, the target keeps moving further away at the same time. And over time, that changes how people live entirely. More income gets consumed by essentials. More years are spent paying off debt. More financial pressure becomes normalized across everyday life. At first, people adapt quietly. They delay major decisions, delay buying homes, delay starting families, delay saving for the future altogether. Not because they're irresponsible, but because maintaining stability now requires more effort than it used to. And eventually, the system begins rewarding something different entirely. Not work alone, ownership. Because once assets begin rising faster than labor income, people who already own appreciating assets move ahead far more easily than people relying only on wages. Homes increase in value. Markets increase in value. Investments compound over time. Meanwhile, people without those assets continue depending almost entirely on earned income, which rises much more slowly. And that creates a divide most people can feel, even if they can't fully explain it. Because increasingly, wealth grows through what you own, not just through how hard you work. And the longer that system continues, the harder it becomes for effort alone to close the gap. This is why so many people feel exhausted financially. Not necessarily because they're failing, but because the system itself has become harder to keep pace with. Every increase in costs requires more income to maintain the same position. Every major life goal moves slightly further away. And eventually, people stop feeling like they're building forward momentum at all. Instead, they feel like they're spending all their energy trying not to fall backwards. And once enough people begin living in that state continuously, the pressure spreads across the entire economy. Because systems built on long-term stability depend on people believing the future will improve with effort. But once that belief weakens, behavior starts changing everywhere. People take on more risk, more debt, more financial pressure simply to maintain normal life. And the dangerous part is, the system can continue operating like this for a very long time before the real consequences fully appear. By the time the consequences become obvious, most people are already living inside them. Because systems like this rarely fail dramatically at first, they weaken slowly, quietly, over years of increasing pressure that gradually becomes normal. And eventually, entire generations begin experiencing a completely different version of economic life than the ones before them. Not because people suddenly became less productive or less ambitious, but because the structure around them changed. The cost of stability increased. The path toward ownership narrowed. And the amount of effort required to maintain the same position continued rising. This is why so many people feel financially exhausted today. Because the system no longer creates the same sense of momentum it once did. People work constantly, yet still feel uncertain about the future. And once enough people begin feeling that uncertainty at the same time, the effects spread far beyond personal finances. Confidence weakens. Long-term planning becomes harder. The future begins to feel less predictable. Because when stability becomes difficult to reach, people stop building their lives the same way. They delay ownership, delay investment, delay major commitments altogether. And over time, the economy itself begins slowing, psychologically as well as financially. Because strong economies depend heavily on confidence in the future. Not just confidence in markets, but confidence that ordinary people can still move forward over time. And once that belief begins disappearing, the pressure underneath the system becomes much harder to reverse. Because eventually, people stop expecting hard work to create stability at all. Instead, survival becomes the focus. Keeping up with costs, managing debt, trying not to lose ground financially. And when enough energy goes into simply maintaining position, progress across the system begins slowing everywhere. This is why the problem goes deeper than wages alone. It's about the relationship between effort and reward. Because once people feel like effort no longer produces meaningful progress, the foundation supporting long-term stability starts weakening underneath the entire economy. Not all at once, but gradually enough that most people adapt to it before fully recognizing how much has changed. And that's what makes the shift so difficult to see clearly. There's no single collapse, no exact moment where everything breaks. Just a system where more people work harder each year, while stability quietly moves further out of reach. And the longer that continues, the more pressure builds underneath everything else. Because economies can survive high costs. They can survive debt. They can even survive periods of instability. But systems become far more fragile once people stop believing the future will reward effort fairly. And once that belief weakens for long enough, the effects begin spreading through the entire structure of society itself. This is what empire economics is about: understanding the systems behind money, pressure, and economic change. Not just what's happening, but why so many people feel the effects long before they can fully explain them. If you want to understand where these shifts lead next, make sure you're here for the next video. Because the pressure building underneath the system doesn't stop here. It keeps spreading.